And as Democrats continue to bid to impeach the US president over a phone call with Ukraine's leader, the Trump administration faces fresh allegations. Text messages sent from White House officials have revealed the extent of pressure placed on Ukraine to investigate the Bidens.
Joining us now is Bruce Wolpe from the US Studies Centre. And Bruce, it's what you leave out, not what you talk about, because this is a changing story. It's a bit like the hourglass, just the sand going down. But let's start with the Australian connection, because only a couple of hours ago that the President said something very interesting and alarming about Australia.
He did, and good morning to you both. The President has in his mind that Australia was part of a conspiracy to spy on the Trump campaign in 2016. This is what the Trumpists say occurred in 2016. George Papadopoulos, the person that Alexander Downer met with in London, said he's a victim of that meeting, and some believe that Alexander Downer was trying to get intelligence on the Trump campaign to take it down. This is their bunk. It's a canard. It didn't happen, but it's clearly in the President's head because he said it a couple hours ago. And this means that there's a coloration now to the relationship that was not evident 3 weeks ago when we had the state dinner with the Prime Minister and the President.
So this is sounding very serious for
Australia. It is very serious because it really does mean that the relationship is burdened by a suspicion among some Trump supporters that Australia did something wrong. Alexander Downer did nothing wrong. He heard that the Russians had Hillary emails. He reported that up the channels. If the American ambassador had heard that the Chinese had stuff on the Prime Minister, you would expect the American ambassador to report it so it could be checked out. And Australia acted with complete faith and fidelity to the alliance. But that this conspiracy theory persists shows that there's a shadow here, and it really could hurt the relationship between the two countries.
Well, 2 weeks ago today, we saw our Prime Minister and President Trump. It was like they were roommates at college. Now, how does that time then and this story today, how does that all merge together?
The way Trump operates is if he thinks a country has done something bad, he will ultimately hold it to account. He knows that Morrison was not Prime Minister at the time and had no direct involvement in this. But the Australian government is going to report on what Downer did, which was absolutely nothing improper. But whether Trump believes it is another matter. So when relationships come up in the future on issues between the two countries, is this in the President's head? And does he want to punish Australia for a past crime that did not occur?
The House committee has issued a number of subpoenas. Who to?
Throughout the executive branch, and particularly the White House. Essentially, they're fleshing out the case on Ukraine, and that will proceed. But the leverage has changed here. After the Mueller report, House Judiciary Committee investigations, the White House stonewalled. They're going to delay, not provide information, and that dragged it out. It meant nothing could happen. What the House is saying to the President now is, we want this information. You don't give it to us. We will consider that obstruction of Congress, and we will do an article of impeachment on your obstructing the Congress. So the leverage has changed. So it's really up to the White House whether they want to cooperate or not to try and build their case before the House. But even 2 hours ago, in facing the press, the President conceded that there are the votes in the House to impeach him, and this is happening.
He's an unorthodox politician, we know that. We know that. But the last story that we just saw, and his doorstop, a doorstop is basically an industry term for where someone will stop and talk to the media. The comment about China and the analogy with the Ukraine and the Bidens, it's almost rogue, isn't it?
It is, and this is why it did explode in Washington yesterday when he goes out in front of the press and he just says, I want China to investigate the Bidens, which is what he said, he was trying to keep secret the same pressure on Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. And he seems to feel, if I say it in plain sight, there's no crime here. Here I am, I'm just acting. But people across Washington have concluded that this is an extraordinarily serious matter, and this will also be a subject of the House impeachment inquiry.
We still don't know who the whistleblower is yet in terms of the impeachment inquiry. Are we going to find out at all?
Given Washington, ultimately you think the whistleblower will come out, just like Deep Throat ultimately came out some decades later. But the identity isn't important. It's whether the information is credible that's important. At this hour, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Services is testifying before the House, showing why he believed that what the whistleblower said was accurate. And so again, they're methodically building out the case, and with all deliberate speed. They want to move this along rather promptly, not have it go into next year, because you get the presidential election, and the longer it festers, the harder it is politically to make a potent case that the House Democrats want to make.
It's a difficult cobweb, US politics sometimes, particularly for people that don't know it or see it.
Yeah.
And trying to unstitch this so people understand what's going on. What do you think is going to happen to the president? What do you think will happen over the next 6 months?
I believe he will be impeached by Christmas, which means a vote in the House to effectively indict him. That will trigger a trial in the Senate. The Senate Majority Leader McConnell has said that if the House impeaches, they will go to trial in the Senate. I think there are then two options available to, and Trump has conceded, again, a couple hours ago, that the House has the votes to impeach him. There are then two options. Do you have a full trial, as occurred with President Clinton in 1999? It lasted 5 weeks on the Senate floor, presided over by the Chief Justice. You could also have a motion to dismiss the charges, which is a simple majority vote. And so I think there's a tactical decision to make. But then the question is, if you dismiss the charges, do people say, well, that's a rush judgment on the Republican side, and they're just going to brush it away? Does that have consequences next November? Now, Mitt Romney, a couple hours ago, said what he saw with China was a really grave issue and very serious. So the real political question is, do Republicans change their view of what Trump did as this proceeds? And does that have a gap? Is there then a gap between the president and Republicans running for re-election?
Because we spoke about this last week, Bruce, about impeachments and then possibly backflipping and being a positive for the person being impeached.
That's right. And Trump is counting on that. He also reported economic numbers a few hours ago. Jobless rate is down to 3.5%, a 50-year low. So he says, what do you want to get rid of me for? I've brought you a good economy. And he's also done, all his messages are to the base, you stick with me, I will stick with you, and we'll stay on our agenda for America. So these are powerful forces. It is very hard to get rid of a sitting president. And Trump knows in this game, the rules are there are no rules. And he will do anything to stay and prosecute his case, and he's very, very effective at it.
Nancy Pelosi, who is the centerpiece
For the Democrats.
Of course.
Yes.
79 years of age, and if you read her history, she's not someone that's going to step back.
No. What's been interesting about her was she was very cautious about stepping forward. But she finally reached a judgment when she heard from Democrats who had won in Trump's seats in 2016 that they were concerned. They wanted something done. That's when she went over and said, okay, let's go. We're going to have this inquiry. She is very strategic. She also knows tactics extremely well. She's deeply immersed in this stuff. She's been on the intelligence committees for 20 years.
And she's a daughter of politics.
She's a daughter. Her father was mayor of Baltimore. It's in her blood. And she knows exactly what she wants to do. And in every direct head-to-head encounter with Trump, she's come out on top.
Yeah, it's interesting. When it first came up, we were sort of questioning whether why Nancy Pelosi was so adamant about this one, considering she had been so against impeachment.
She was getting to your point. Is this going to blow up against the Democrats? And that's why she was so cautious. She's just become Speaker. Democrats have taken over the House. If she acts too fast, does she threaten the Democratic majority? So she was very careful about it, but now she has crossed the Rubicon, which is now a dam. The dam is burst. It's called Rubicon, and she is really, and she's moving.
She's kayaked across the Hoover Dam. What about Joe Biden in all of this?
It's really interesting. Is Joe Biden going to be the #1 victim, and is a whole bunch of sympathy going to come to him? Every objective observer says that this charges are Joe Biden is not corrupt, and if he is corrupt, why go to China and Ukraine? Why not report him to the FBI? But so the question is does he become the #1 victim, or mud sticks? Does he carry baggage now, and does his standing among Democrats, we love you, Joe, you're great, but you shouldn't be the nominee because there's too much baggage. We won't know that till we see the results of the primaries in February and March.
What will you be listening for in the next few days? Everything.
I'll be listening for whether there's a further hardening of attitudes and a deliberate move to get a vote on impeachment sooner rather than later. I believe that's coming.
Well, there's one place where the mud doesn't stick, and it hasn't stuck so far. That's the president.
He feels he's invulnerable. He said very famously a few years ago, I could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and no one would really. And he feels that he can talk about what he wants to do with China, talk about what he wants to do with Ukraine, and he suffers no consequences, and he says out there, I'm just against corruption. How dare you come after me? So nothing shakes Trump's self-confidence. Nothing shakes his belief in what he's doing and how he wants to prosecute his case.
And just quickly, before we go, the fourth Democratic debate in Ohio, the 15th of October.
Yes.
They've set the podium stage. Joe Biden is the front runner in the middle. Is Elizabeth Warren. How's Bernie Sanders? Because he was in hospital last week.
They say Bernie Sanders will come back. Everyone certainly hopes so. But his illness raises the issue of age. As you said, Joe Biden is 76. Elizabeth Warren is 70. President Trump is 73. So the four leading candidates for the presidency are all in their 70s. That does raise generational issues. But yes, Bernie Sanders is expected to return, and he raised a lot of money, the most in the past quarter among Democrats.
Just last question. Is there a generational political problem in the US in the sense that no young people, or it doesn't seem to be a situation where young people are coming through, or even middle-aged people?
Trump does not count on young people, so it's irrelevant for him. But will young people show enthusiasm in voting? And is that enthusiasm turned off if they nominate someone really old?
But what I'm saying is, there's not a lot of younger people who are coming into politics.
No, that's changing. In the House of Representatives, which is 2 generations away from the presidential candidates we'll see, they're coming in. Young people are coming in. But the other contenders are in their 50s right now, but they haven't risen to the top rank. Kamala Harris, for example, Cory Booker.
Yeah.
They haven't come out on top
Marianne
yet.
Williamson.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Marianne.
Yeah.
Your woman.
My woman.
That's right.
My friend.
Well, yeah. It's an interesting time, isn't it? It does seem to be all the people that are sort of right on focus are the people deep into their 70s.
That's right. And that does raise issues for how the future of the country and the quality of government we're going to get.
Bruce, never a dull moment.
No, and we'll do some more next
Yes,
week.
100%.
Okay.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right.